If there's one thing I will always spend money on without hesitation, it's books. I've learned more about money and personal finance from books than I learned in college as a finance major. And it was all at a fraction of the cost. In this video, I'm gonna talk about the 5 best personal finance books of all time. I'll summarize the main takeaways of each book, and I'll also list my reasons for why I think you should read it. Each of these books had a major impact on my life, changed the trajectory of my career, life, and money choices, and I honestly don't know where I'd be without these books. Probably broke, in debt, and barely scraping by. Not a pretty picture. The list I'm about to share with you isn't in any particular order, but I've tried to list the books more or less in the order that they came into my life. Each book gave me key life learnings along the way and represents different milestones in my financial journey that I'll tell you a little bit more about. So I hope you enjoy. Give this video a like and let's dive right in. So the first personal finance book I've ever read was in my early teens, Rich Dad, Poor Dad: What the Rich Teach Their Kids About Money That the Poor and Middle Class Do Not, by Robert Kiyosaki. In this book, Kiyosaki talks about the money lessons that he learned from his 2 dads. His real father, who was his poor dad, and his best friend's father, who was his rich dad. His poor dad, despite being hardworking and highly educated, never really got ahead financially. And his rich dad, on the other hand, didn't even finish high school, but his rich dad understood the rules of money and became one of the richest businessmen in Hawaii. So here are some key takeaways from the book. Kiyosaki says that in order to become wealthy, you need to understand the difference between an asset and a liability. I think this is by far the most important lesson from the book, because the wealthy buy assets, whereas the poor and middle class buy liabilities. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket, such as stocks, bonds, rental property, and a liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. So cars, houses, watches, designer handbags, things like that. Liabilities cost money to buy and they cost money to maintain. So they really prevent you from building wealth because the cash flow direction is out of your pocket versus into your pocket. On the other hand, every dollar you invest into an asset becomes kind of like an employee that's working for you 24/7 to create more income, even when you're on vacation. This is the whole idea behind passive income. And I actually have a whole video about investments that throw off passive income, so check it out right here if you're interested. But essentially the idea is that assets throw off income or cash flow even when you're not working for it. The goal is to get your income as high above your expenses as possible so that you can invest this excess income into assets. And then these assets throw off more income and then they create this virtuous cycle of increasing cash flow and increasing assets. When you have enough income from your assets to cover your monthly living expenses, that's when you become wealthy, according to Kiyosaki. In the book, he also differentiates between your job and your assets. So your job is not an asset because if you stop working, the money stops coming in. But if you take the income from your job and then you turn that into assets, that's what's really gonna make you wealthy and enable you to leave the so-called rat race. Another point I thought that was super important to highlight is that financial literacy is everything. Financially ignorant people make decisions based on fear and greed, whereas financially literate people make decisions based on rational analysis. For example, the fear of losing money prevents financially ignorant people from investing in stocks, even though that's what would make them wealthy in the long term. The more financial literacy you have, the less influenced you'll be by your emotions and the better decisions you can make. Finally, the book also talks about the importance of understanding the tax code to minimize your taxes. Taxes are going to be your single biggest expense over your lifetime. And Kiyosaki says that financially intelligent people know how to use the tax code to make themselves wealthy. For example, business owners earn, they spend as much as they can, and then they get taxed on what's left. On the other hand, employees earn, they get taxed, and then they spend only what's left. So the wealthy take advantage of businesses, corporations, and other legal structures that allow them to deduct all their expenses before they pay any taxes. Unfortunately, the school system isn't designed to teach you this stuff. So it's up to you, up to us, to obtain the financial education on your own. So I grew up in a very traditional Korean family, and the only life advice I ever got was to go to school, study hard, and get a good job. If I hadn't come across this book, I probably never would have realized that there was another better way. So I consider Robert Kiyosaki as my rich dad, and I've really learned so much from him that you typically wouldn't learn from your parents or in school. To open your eyes to a whole new world of possibilities, please do yourself a favor and read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's the best-selling personal finance book of all time, so I seriously can't recommend this book enough. I will say, though, that the teachings are pretty high level and there isn't a whole lot of actionable, detailed advice. So if you're looking for a more practical step-by-step guide, then this next book is for you. My next book is another one by Robert Kiyosaki, Cash Flow Quadrant, and it's basically part 2 of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. In the book, Kiyosaki tells the story of how he and his wife Kim used to be homeless. And then he tells the story of how they got out of it and became financially free in just a few short years. It's an incredible story and very inspiring. And he lays out the 7 steps to financial freedom, which are the exact steps he and his wife took to get out of being homeless, to retire young and retire rich. He talks about the cash flow quadrant, which has 4 quadrants: E, S, B, and I. E stands for employee, and E's main source of cash flow is their paycheck. B stands for business person, and B's get the bulk of their cash flow from the businesses that they own. S stands for self-employed, and S's get most of their cash flow from working in their businesses. S's are lawyers, doctors that have their own practice, freelancers, consultants, and anyone who works for themselves. So they don't have the freedom of a B because they are their business. If they stop working, the money stops coming in. The 4th quadrant, I, stands for investor, and I's get most of their cash flow from investment income, such as dividends, interest, and rent. Most of us are conditioned to become E's. Nobody learns in school how to become an entrepreneur, how to invest their money, things like that. However, Kiyosaki says that true financial freedom lies in the B and I quadrants. The B's and I's take a lot of risks, but they also have passive income that enables them to work only if they want to. B's and I's tend to value freedom, whereas E's tend to value job security. He also talks about how B's and I's pay the least in taxes because there's a lot of loopholes available to B's and I's, whereas E's and S's have a lot less to work with. This book is all about being intentional about which quadrant you end up in. So I come from a family of E's, but after graduating college, I realized that what I really wanted was to become a B and an I. Corporate life just wasn't for me. I wasn't cut out to be an employee, even though that's what I thought I had to become based on what my family would tell me all the time. So you don't have to stay in the quadrant that you're in now. However, it will take a lot of dedication and learning to jump over to a new quadrant. And this book tells you exactly what kind of skills you need to learn and the mindset shifts you need to make to change quadrants. It's been like 7 years since I last read this book, and I'm currently rereading it again. And seriously, it's just blowing my mind just as much, if not more than before. I've read every single one of Robert Kiyosaki's books, and it's so hard to convey how much I've learned from them. So do yourself a favor and pick up a copy of the Cash Flow Quadrant now. The next personal finance book that changed my life is The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. I came across this book in my freshman year of college in New York, and this was at the Barnes & Noble in Union Square, and the title and the cover of the book caught my eye. I had taken a gap year before college to backpack around the world, and I was totally looking for a way to go traveling again. I was deep into my freshman year, really missing that travel life, and life got pretty busy for me because I was studying to get a finance degree, and I was also working full-time to put myself through college. So reading The 4-Hour Workweek inspired me to just think out of the box from the traditional 9-to-5, get a 9-to-5 job after school kind of life. And it really encouraged me to dig deeper and look for other ways. So the biggest takeaway from the book is the idea of time and location freedom. When you have total control over when you work and where you work, you're part of what Tim Ferriss calls the new rich. The new rich don't necessarily have a ton of money, although sometimes they do, but they have automated streams of income, passive income, that allows them to work from anywhere and to work only as much as they want to. So in the book, he gives you a blueprint for creating passive income streams that enable you to live the new rich lifestyle. And he even has some tips on how regular office employees can also live the new rich lifestyle by becoming hyper efficient with their time and priorities and by getting their bosses to let them work remotely. He also talks about how to take mini retirements, which is the antithesis of the traditional idea of retirement, where you work for 50 years and then you retire when you're old. All in all, it's a really cool book that challenges you to rethink everything you believe about productivity, time, and money. Before reading this book, I thought that if I wanted to travel the world again, my only options were to either be a broke, vagabond, backpacking traveler, or to work long hours at a high-paying job and just have 2 weeks of vacation once a year. Oftentimes, society trains us to think that we can really only choose between A or B, but there's always an option C where you can have the best of both worlds. I recommend this book for anyone who wants to design their life intentionally and make time to do the things you want to do now, not decades later when you're old and retired. Fourth on my list of best personal finance books of all time is I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. He gives pretty unconventional advice like don't keep a budget, buy all the lattes you want, and to use credit cards to your advantage. And his book is basically the ultimate guide to financial adulting in a way that we would want to follow. Not to mention, he has a kind of weird sense of humor that totally cracks me up. He gives specific recommendations on where to open your bank accounts, what credit cards to use, how to use your credit cards, where to open your Roth IRA, how to get out of debt, as well as how to bucket your money between fixed costs, saving, investing, and guilt-free spending. I actually did a video recently called Budgeting for Beginners. It's right here if you want to check it out. But a lot of the system that I use came from advice that I got from his book. It's not the exact same, but it's very similar in the sense that he doesn't really advocate keeping a line-by-line strict budget. It's more about paying yourself first, telling your money where to go, and then after you've done all that, then you can spend guilt-free. His whole idea is about automating everything, and by automating everything, you bypass the need to exercise willpower when you're saving and managing your money. It's a really, really awesome book, and every time I read it, I get some new ideas on how I can better optimize my finances. I also love his tip about opening multiple savings accounts for different savings goals. So at the moment, I only have one savings account that I use for everything, but he advises you to find a bank that lets you open sub-savings accounts that you can nickname. For example, you can have an account called down payment on a house, another account called emergency fund, and another account called YOLO, and I really think putting a name to your finances makes it more motivating to save money for it. I really wish I'd found this book right when I graduated college, because it would have helped me save money at my first job, get out of debt faster, and just invest more with my salary. Instead, because I didn't know about this book, I was just spending money and feeling guilty and just kind of always feeling this low-level stress about my finances. So whether you're just out of college or you've been working for a while, do yourself a favor and get this book. It will 100% help you organize your financial life and set yourself up for success. The fifth book on my list of best personal finance books of all time is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. This book is the granddaddy of personal finance books because it's the ultimate on money mindset and wealth consciousness. Over the course of 20 years, Napoleon Hill interviewed a bunch of people who had built huge fortunes from scratch. People like Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller, and he found commonalities among them and basically found the blueprint for how anyone can become rich. The premise of the book is that it doesn't take money to make money, that money starts in the mind. He says that getting rich first starts with a keen desire, plus a plan, and unwavering focus. So with these three ingredients, you can create all the riches that you want. This whole idea that it doesn't take money to make money, that was pretty foreign to me at the time, because I thought you just needed a lot of money to invest and to make more money. If you've ever heard that old saying, it takes money to make money, well, this book is saying that it's not true. So about 4 years out of college, I wasn't happy at my job on Wall Street, and I was looking for a way out. And I really wanted to learn about real estate and invest in real estate, but I didn't have the money to do it. I also had a bunch of student loans and, all that good stuff. Even so, I never totally gave up on my dream of one day owning real estate. And rather than giving up on it, I just started reading and studying all about real estate investing. I even called a few brokers to look at some property listings, even though I didn't have any money to buy anything. And by chance, through all these efforts, I ended up meeting a very successful New York City real estate investor. And I asked him if I could start shadowing him so that I could just learn the ropes and see what he does. And that actually turned into my next job. And I ended up adding so much value to his business that he gave me sweat equity in 2 Brooklyn apartment buildings. Sweat equity is where you own a piece of the properties or of the business or whatever without putting your own money in. So basically, I got a small percentage of ownership in real estate that I could never have afforded on my own, all thanks to the mindset principles I learned in Think and Grow Rich. It really doesn't take money to make money. It starts with a desire. So this book basically teaches the law of attraction and how once you make the decision to get rich, all kinds of people, ideas, and opportunities will come to you to help you get there. So it might be a little woo-woo for some people, but the more of these books I read, the more I realize that money and wealth is pretty much 90% about mindset and less about knowing a bunch of complex financial information. Because even if you know stuff, if you don't have the mindset, then you're not going to take the actions on that information and you're not going to do what's required. Schools don't teach you anything about personal finance, and I didn't have parents who really talked to me about money. It was more or less a taboo topic in the household. So I'm truly grateful for books and everything we can learn from them. It's amazing that we can learn everything we need to know about money from a stack of books that altogether costs less than $50. I really hope you'll check them out. So now I want to hear from you. Which of these books are you planning to read? And are there any other personal finance books that I didn't mention here that have made a big impact on your life? Let me know in the comments. Now, once you read these books and they help you with your mindset, budgeting, getting out of debt, and saving money, you might be wondering what comes after that. So the answer is investing. No one ever got rich by saving money in a bank account, because in order to reach financial freedom, you need to invest. And you know what? Investing is easy to learn. You can find everything you'll ever need to know about investing inside the pages of my favorite investing books. So in next week's video, I'm going to talk about my favorite investing books of all time. I've read tons of investing books, so this is going to be a highly curated, beginner-friendly list. I learned more about investing from these books than I learned in my 4 years at college getting a finance degree. So you definitely don't want to miss this list. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss that video. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you, and thank you for joining me on this journey. I post new money and investing videos every Wednesday, so I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Bye.